exclusive and C News is live at noon. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has stressed the need for hemispheric collaboration to deal with natural disasters. As he spoke at the conference of the Defense Ministers of the Americas this morning, Dr. Rowley cited the 2010 earthquake in Chile and recent fires and floods in the US and Canada to make the point that this hemisphere needs to work together to ensure there is a plan to deal with incidents such as those. He's hoping that following this conference, there will be a comprehensive framework beginning with disaster preparedness and humanitarian assistance.
Trinidad and Tobago, for example, the Civil Aviation Authority has sought to enhance civil-military coordination for aeronautical search and rescue by seeking to harmonize and improve search and rescue operations within Trinidad and Tobago by hosting operational meetings with key national security stakeholders, including Trinidad and Tobago's Coast Guard, the Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard, the National Operations Center, and the Office of Disaster Preparedness.
Dr. Rowley also noted transnational organized crime, terrorism, money laundering, and human trafficking have the ability to impact regional and international security and undermine sustainable development efforts, particularly for small island developing states. He said collaboration is needed to deal with this new reality.
Maybe out of this conference can come a commitment and a resolution that the need for the hemispheric, our hemisphere policy should be coming at this time. Security is too important to us, and small people with big bad ideas threaten all of us. The time is now.
Dr. Rowley also expressed disappointment that Cuba was not present at the meeting. And Minister of National Security Edmund Dillon also spoke at the 12th CDMA. He made reference to the recent hurricane to hit Haiti to explain why such a conference is important.
There must be a certain kind of response mechanism throughout the Americas. While in CARICOM we do have a response mechanism within CARICOM, we're suggesting that within the Americas themselves, we must have the kind of policy, the kind of strategy that's required for a collective response, especially in the area of natural disasters and humanitarian assistance. And this is one of the remit that we hope will be discussed to its fullest during the conference.
He said each nation must bring collective wisdom and institutions together to face the common challenge.
Our proposal to begin the dialogue on the need for an overarching hemispheric security and defense cooperation policy was based on the recognition of their increased reliance on the employment of the military for the provision of humanitarian emergency assistance in major incidents that call for sub-regional collective responses.
Minister of Works and Transport Fitzgerald Hines says new PTSC buses are being sought for Tobago to ensure the taxpayers get what is owed to them. Referring to the accident in Lance Formey in Tobago on Monday, which claimed the life of one man and injuring several others, the minister said that work is being done to ensure such an incident does not take place again. He said there are several types of buses being used and the government is looking to rationalize this and bring it down to 4 different types to make it efficient and sensible.
Not correct to think that nothing was happening. I have been looking at the whole picture, that is to say PTSC and Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to buses, their serviceability, their maintenance, and most of all, the provision of service to the taxpayers and the people who need to use these buses in Trinidad and Tobago. This very unfortunate matter developed yesterday, and I am reacting to it without apology, with empathy, with sympathy, with genuine care, and with an eye on ensuring that we improve all the circumstances such that women like the one we heard from don't have to cry for the same reason again. Minister.
He said several buses are to be taken to Tobago soon. However, a tendering process is still in progress.
The PTSC informed me that I think some 20 of those buses are earmarked to be brought to Tobago. We expect to be able to procure them perhaps within the next 7 or so months, depending on which part of the world they're coming from. If they're coming from Europe, if they're coming from Asia, if they're coming from Latin America, it depends. We are in the process of getting the procurement process going for that.
Well, you're watching the C News live report at noon. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest news on our website at ctvtt.com, or you can check out our Facebook and Twitter pages at C News Live. Hassan Ali, the 34-year-old bystander who was shot in the head during an attempted robbery at the Specs barbershop in Tobago Martin on Friday, has died. Family members confirmed to C News that he died at the Port of Spain General Hospital at around 7 p.m. on Monday. Mr. Ali was shot in the head during a shootout between a plainclothes police officer, Inspector Kenneth Morgan, and two bandits who had entered the barbershop and attempted to rob the owners. One bandit was shot and died at the scene. Mr. Ali was among 5 persons who were injured during the melee. He underwent emergency surgery and was warded at the Port of Spain General Hospital ICU since Friday. Mr. Ali was the leader of the Kokorit Huse group and would have been taking part in the annual ritual this week with his friends and family. Meanwhile, Inshan Ismail of the Islamic Broadcasting Network has called for a full probe into the incident on Friday, as he said the police officer may have acted irresponsibly in engaging the bandits in a room full of innocent bystanders. Mr. Ismail made the call at Mr. Ali's wake at his home at Farfan Street, Tobago Martin on Monday night. The decomposing body of a woman who was reported missing on Thursday has been found in Moncoco Road, Maraval. Reports say the body of Vanessa Aki was found around shortly before 8 p.m. on Monday. The woman is reported to have been thrown over a precipice in the area, and the cause of her death could not be immediately determined as her body was in an advanced stage of decomposition. The Ministry of Works and Transport is advising the public that the Traffic Management Branch will be conducting a road marking exercise at the interchange of the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway and the Uriah Butler Highway to El Socorro, Aranguez from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. today. It is asking motorists to proceed with caution. And the main cause of fires in this country is poor electrical equipment. And as such, Fire Sub-Officer Blaine Wilson is asking the population to take extra caution where needed. This as Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the world commemorates Fire Prevention Week. Blaine noted Trinidad and Tobago has a major problem with containing and preventing fires.
Trinidadians and Tobagonians love extension cords. I'm sure people are sitting in their living room now and they are saying, yes, I have that extension cord there. Extension cords should be for temporary use only, but in most homes they become a permanent fixture. So we'd want to deal with faulty electrical equipment, ensure that we avoid overloading circuits, and when we have dimming lights, breakers tripping, fuse blowing, we'd want to ensure that we call in a qualified electrician to have that serviced.
The international theme for this year is Don't Wait, Check the Date, replace your smoke alarm every 10 years. However, many homes in Trinidad and Tobago are not outfitted with smoke detectors.
We are still, as a fire service, encouraging the community, the householders, to please install that smoke alarm in your home, because this is what gives you that early warning, allowing you to know that a fire is taking place so you can either quickly extinguish that fire or get your families out safely.
To some other news now, the 5 men are currently on a hunger strike going on 2 weeks. Attorney at law Nafisa Mohammed is continuing to ask the authorities here to engage in deep dialogue with the Venezuelan authorities to have the men repatriated.
It's almost 2 weeks now they have gone on a hunger strike because over the past couple of weeks, every 2 weeks it was said that they would be taken to court, and very often they are not necessarily taken to court. There's no hearing, and this process that they are subjected to is really a very farcical type of process. But
the men were among a group who were arrested in March 2014. The women and children were released days after. It was reported that they went to Venezuela to get their visas to go to Saudi Arabia to perform Umrah. 2 of the 5 men were arrested during the 2010 state of emergency, one of whom wrote a pre-action protocol letter to the then Attorney General claiming false imprisonment.
I know Jamal Pitilal was also taking steps legally to clear his name. And the sad fact of the matter is that because of what transpired during that period, many persons, many Muslims were detained, and their names have become tarnished for the rest of their lives. And this thing continued to haunt them.
And head of the Jamaat al-Muslimin, Imam Yassin Abu Bakr, says he is confident Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley will ensure the 5 Trinidad and Tobago nationals currently imprisoned in Venezuela will be returned home. In a special interview with C News, the Imam referenced a meeting with Dr. Rowley and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro earlier this year, and it was decided that the men would be repatriated.
So it is on record that he said he will do the trade, and since then we have sent about $27 million in food. Me, you know, these days it's so much who's saying what and who's saying what. I would like to say categorically today that I believe Mr. Rowley. Right? I believe that if he says he will do something, he will do it.
More needs to be done to stop the abuse of antibiotics in the Caribbean. This, as a new antibiotic drug has not been designed since 1980. Antimicrobial resistance threatens the effective prevention and the treatment of an ever-increasing range of infections caused by bacteria, parasites, viruses, and fungi. And in September, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said antimicrobial resistance poses a fundamental long-term threat to human health, sustainable food production and development. Today, speaking at Antimicrobial Resistance Workshop, PAHO WHO representative Dr. Bernadette Theodore Gandhi said countries need to continue to work together to stop the abuse of antibiotics.
It's for the flu, etc., and you don't need antibiotics for the flu. What you need really is bed rest fluids and vitamin C. But many times people insist, I must get the tablets, I must get the antibiotics. And many times too, when people are treated with antibiotics for infections, they don't take the whole course of antibiotics. So therefore, once you begin to feel better, they stop using the antibiotics. And therefore, when you stop using the antibiotics, the germs that the antibiotics are supposed to use begin to multiply again.
The Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Orville London, says sandals coming to Tobago will benefit the country. Mr. London was speaking on Sunday to delegates during the Diego Martin West Constituency Conference.
So when people talk about sandals, it is not just simply about a company coming in to put down a hotel in Tobago. It is about a particular activity that can totally transform Tobago's tourism sector and be the catalyst for more and more development in that sector.
Mr. London said there's already interest shown just because of Sandals' intention to come to Tobago.
Because if you get Sandals into Tobago, regardless of how many rooms, you have a situation where in one fell swoop, you're dealing with your airlift problem, because wherever Sandal goes, the airlines follow. You're dealing with your quality room stock, because they of course are going to increase the numbers, and you're not talking about, you're talking about 4 and 5 star rooms. And you also dealing with the marketing, because they have a brand, they have a worldwide brand.
The countdown is on towards tomorrow night's crucial clash between the Soca Warriors and Martinique, which could go to extra time and penalties to determine a winner, with a place in the Caribbean Cup semis up for grabs as well as passage through the Gold Cup in the US next year. The Warriors arrived in Martinique yesterday, looking a little jaded after a long trip, which compromised several different stops and flights. But that didn't stop them from immediately heading out to practice as they try to get acclimatized as quickly as possible. And Coach Stephen Hart tried to get the close-to game ready as he's very wary of their opponents.
Very organized, very disciplined. I was really impressed with their discipline, and we have to ensure that we we don't play into that organization and get caught on the counterattack, which we have a tendency to do at times. We have to be very wary of that.
The weather conditions changed drastically during the session, forcing them to alter it to include more of a fun exercise than anything too heavy. Still, the coach lamented the fact that he had to cut short his session and isn't sure if they will get on the match surface before kickoff.
Yeah, very, very heavy rain. As you can see, the field is flooded, so it was impossible to train. And we don't know, we have a mandatory time on the stadium, but I'm guessing we are not going to get to use the stadium. So we can do nothing about the weather. We just have to deal with it. We've come here for a victory, and we will play and do everything possible to come away with the positive result.
And the TT versus Martinique game will be held tonight. The shadow of corruption continues to follow the world governing body for football, FIFA, here in CONCACAF. This as former president of the Costa Rican Football Federation and member of the FIFA Executive Committee, Eduardo Lee, pleads guilty to racketeering conspiracy, wire fraud and wire fraud conspiracy. The charges are in connection with his receipt of bribes in exchange for his awarding of contracts for the media and marketing rights to FIFA World Cup qualifier matches. He also took bribes to authorize the international friendly matches played by the Costa Rican national soccer team. As part of his plea, Lee agreed to forfeit $668,000 at sentencing. Lee faces a maximum sentence of 20 years for each count. Today's plea proceeding took place before United States District Judge Pamela K. Chen. And a Bangladeshi man who says he was harshly exploited while working on 22 World Cup facilities in Qatar is suing FIFA for allegedly failing to use its influence to ensure workers are treated fairly. The Gulf state has faced criticism of its treatment of foreign workers, but the case announced on Monday is the first time football's world governing body has been targeted. The lawsuit, launched in Zurich with the backing of the largest labor union in the Netherlands, called on FIFA to force Qatar to adopt minimum labor standards for migrant workers preparing for the tournament, including at least the right to quit a job or leave the country. 21-year-old Nadim Sharaful Alam is seeking around $11,500 in compensation for a deal in which he paid $4,000 to a recruiter. Ravi Chandran Ashwin took a career best 13-140 as India beat New Zealand by 321 runs to seal a 3-0 series whitewash. Pujara had set up the victory bid in the third test in Indore when he hit an unbeaten century as the hosts set the Black Caps 475 to win. Off-spinner Ashwin then returned his best innings figures of 7-59 as New Zealand were skittled for 153. Virat Kohli and Ajinkya Rahane helped India to a decisive 507-5 in the first innings, and their partnership of 365 was India's highest for the fourth wicket, and Ashwin took 6-81 to restrict New Zealand to 299 in their reply. Ashwin 30 finished with 27 wickets in the 3-test series. And here's a look at what's taking place in the region.
Tropical storm Nicole is expected to strengthen back to a hurricane on Tuesday as the system continues creeping towards Bermuda. Now this is according to the National Hurricane Center on Monday night. Bermuda, under a hurricane watch on Monday, could see hurricane conditions by Wednesday night. The slow-moving storm, located about 395 miles south of Bermuda, is churning at about 6 miles per hour. Bahamas Prime Minister Perry Christie says an exigency order will take effect in the Bahamas on Tuesday in the wake of Hurricane Matthew. Christie pointed out that Hurricane Joaquin, which hit parts of the Bahamas in 2015, was estimated to cause $100 million in damage. He said the damage caused by Matthew is likely to be much greater. He said the exigency orders will cover building materials, furniture and vehicles. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon on Monday announced the launch of a near $120 million appeal to fund United Nations aid activities in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew in Haiti. He said at least 1.4 million people need assistance at this time. Some towns and villages have been almost wiped off the map. Crops and food reserves have been destroyed and at least 300 schools have been damaged. He said the numbers of those impacted and the needs are growing as more affected areas are reached. Moreover, tensions are already mounting as people await help. In Guyana, the main opposition People's Progressive Party said there is a crisis of confidence in the country and blamed the ruling coalition government of President David Granger for the situation. PPP General Secretary and former Home Affairs Minister Clement Rohi said there is a pervasive national sentiment that the Granger administration is clueless, incompetent and in a state of drift. He said the real problem in Guyana is not mysterious and can be found in the modus operandi of the coalition administration, which is at odds with the Guyanese character, customs and mores.
And a look at some international news now. One girl under the age of 15 is married every 7 seconds, according to a new report by Save the Children. The study says girls as young as 10 are forced to marry much older men in countries including Afghanistan, Yemen, India and Somalia. Save the Children says early marriage can trigger a cycle of disadvantage across every part of a girl's life. Conflict, poverty and humanitarian crises are seen as major factors that leave girls exposed to child marriage. The report, called Every Last Girl, ranks countries based on the hardest place to be a girl, based on schooling, child marriage, teen pregnancy, maternal deaths, and the number of women in parliament. Chad, Niger, Central America, African Republic rather, Mali and Somalia were ranked at the bottom of the index. And the South Korean tech giant Samsung has permanently ceased production of its high-end Galaxy Note 7 smartphones after reports of devices it had deemed safe catching fire. The firm had already reduced Galaxy Note 7 production volumes. Owners are expected to be able to return the phones for a refund or an exchange for a different Samsung phone. The firm had earlier said it would stop sales of the phones. Cuban Ambassador Vasquez Moreno says the United States of America has a double standard when it comes to the fight against crime. He made reference to the fact that Freddy Luego and Hernan Ricardo Lazono have been walking free despite their role in the 1976 bomb attack on the Cubana 455 flight from Barbados to Cuba. Ian Wason has more.
Praised for its role in the fight against terrorism some 40 years ago, Trinidad authorities arrested Freddy Lugo and Hernan Ricardo Lozano, the two terrorists both responsible for the bomb attack on the Cubana 455 flight. However, Ambassador Moreno was disappointed. The men have been walking free for over 2 decades.
We haven't been able to prevent the fact that both Orlando Bosch and Posada Carrillo have lived their lives freely in the United States in spite of their involvement in this heinous act. But it's not the responsibility of the Trinitarian. It's not the responsibility of anybody in the Caribbean. It expresses some double standard in the war against terror.
73 persons died on that flight as the aircraft was leaving Barbados for Cuba. A son of one of the passengers on that flight said, unveiling the plaque at the Piaco International Airport on Sunday brought some comfort to him, as this country has found a place where the victims can be remembered. Ian Wason for C News.
And that's how we end the C News report at noon. I'm Mahalia Joseph. Good afternoon.